David here from figbootonpens. Today I'm going to be talking about a pen from the Edison pen company, but not a pen from their standard lineup, one of their limited editions. Edison is a manufacturer based out of Milan, Ohio, which is the boyhood home of Thomas Edison, and served as inspiration behind the naming of the company. It was founded back in 2007 by Brian Gray and is run by Brian and his wife Andrea. Here they are at their booth at the DC Pen Show. I've previously done a review of their Menlo pump filler, which is one of my more beautiful pens, in my opinion. And in that review, I talk more about the company history and the unique process of ordering one of their pens. So if you'd like to know more about that, it can be found in that review on my channel. The pen I'm going to be talking about today, however, is a little different than their standard offering. Edison isn't a company that runs a lot of promotions or sales. The price is the price. But once a year, what Brian does is that he organizes what's called a group buy, where they make an offering of a pen with usually unique materials or some different features than a pen in their standard line. And that last year, the pen being offered was the Mina. The standard price for a Mina is $200 with a steel nib, but the limited editions for this group buy were offered at $175. And it was offered in both standard and extended models in two different materials. Here's a standard Mina in the silver amber acrylic, and here's an extended version in the denim ebonite. Normally the ends of the Mina are rounded, but on these versions they're flat. And we'll get into it later, but there's a new nib on these pens that Edison had previously not made available. There's a buy-in period for a few weeks, and once that buy-in period has closed, then the pens are no longer available to purchase. And at that point, then Brian goes out and buys all the materials and begins the manufacturing process. This past year, the group buy started in October, and I believe there was over 200 participants, and that then Brian committed to shipping all of the pens to everyone within 2 to 4 months. During this manufacturing period, Brian posts updates on his site. Here are the materials for the pens as they arrive, and here's some pictures of all the parts after they've been tooled. I really like the symmetry of seeing all the parts laid out like that. I just think it's kind of cool. Brian will also post videos of the production process, and 4 months later, here are the pens all packaged up and ready to be shipped. The pen arrives in this sleeve and this box. It kind of has a faux alligator covering on it, and inside we have kind of a plastic bookmark, and then also we have something kind of cool, a little metal bookmark. Just one second, let me get it out of here. It has the Edison logo, which is kind of neat. You can kind of see that. We'll do it up there. And that it's kind of neat just because the logo looks a little bit like a light bulb, which is kind of a cool little nod to Thomas Edison. And that then the logo is also on the inside of the box as well. But enough about the packaging. You want to see a pen. Which of the models did I pick up? Well, I purchased the extended blue denim ebonite. It's a bit on the dark side, so it won't be tough to see, but the ebonite has some very nice swirling patterns. The pen also doesn't really have a strong ebonite smell to it. You can smell it a little bit on the section, but I had this pen for about 6 or 7 months now, and I can't really recall if it ever had a strong smell to begin with. So I'm not sure if it's dissipated over time or if it just never really had a strong odor to begin with. We'll start here at the finial, that it's a flat end, and then there is a number. As I said, I believe there was around 200 of these sold, and I received number 93. I kind of wish the number was a little bit larger though. Maybe I'm just getting old, but for me it's a bit tough to make out with the naked eye. Maybe that's just because of the shapes of the specific 9s and 3s that make them a bit tough to differentiate. The cap tapers down to this barrel transition, and then the barrel tapers back up to the end where it is again flattened off. And it has the same and is the very same size as the top of the cap. Like I said, it's a little dark, but I really like the swirling pattern which results from the cross-cutting of the material. The barrel patterns are really interesting as well. This pen is clipless, and this is the extended version. The only dimension difference between the standard and the extended model is the length. Everything else is the same as far as the length of the end, and then also the length of the middle part of the section of the pen where it tapers down as well. That the extended model is about 3/4 of an inch longer than a standard model, but everything else is exactly the same. The cap twists off to reveal this very unique nib. It's very narrow and the sides are more angled than rounded. And there's no breather hole on this new nib. And here's a picture of the plastic feed as well. And then here it is in comparison to a standard Edison nib. We'll see how it performs in the writing sample, but I'm a big fan of the standard Edison nib, that Brian does a great job of tuning them up. And that of the two, while the new nib performs well, I kind of personally care for the standard nib just a little bit more, but they are both very good. The section of the Mina is a little on the small side. It's a bit small for my personal taste, but I do really like the shape of it. That while I typically grip the pen a little close to the nib, that with this pen I find myself gripping a little further back on this on the larger part of the section, and that then right next to this section there are the cap threads, which aren't very sharp at all, and then there's a step up to the barrel, which is really comfortable enough if your grip is further back and you end up rubbing up against it. It doesn't matter. This is a cartridge converter pen. It does come with a cartridge, but there is no metal inside here, so if you did want to use it as an eyedropper, that is something that you could do as well. That this pen does not post. It doesn't even fit on here. I find it a bit annoying when a pen seems like it should post and it doesn't. So you're kind of left wondering if it doesn't post by design or if you have a defective pen. So I kind of like the fact that this doesn't even fit on the back, so you know that, hey, it was by design. So this was last year's limited edition, and the limited edition for this year will be actually coming out very shortly. I spoke with Brian at the DC Pen Show, and while last year he met the 2 to 4 month deadline, he was a little frustrated at the length that the overall project took. He's just always looking for ways to improve his manufacturing processes. And so for this year's group buy, he has some ideas on how to minimize that turnaround time from the purchase window. So don't be surprised if the wait is significantly shortened this year. So that is the limited edition Edison Mina. It is a very nice pen. I own a number of Edisons, and I really have yet to be disappointed by a single one. They are very well made. Their standard and custom pens are offered in literally hundreds of different amazing colors and patterns. And then on top of that, the service and support you receive from them is excellent as well. I would highly recommend checking them out. A good opportunity to do so is with these annual group buys. So be on the lookout for the one coming up here relatively soon. So now it's time for some measurements, some size comparisons, and then I'll provide a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Edison Pens Limited Edition Mina, and this one is the one in denim ebonite. Thought I'd compare it with some other ebonite pens. Here is a Sailor King of Pen in ebonite. So you can see that it's the extended Mina is a pretty long pen. Then we have the Wall Eversharp Deco Band in its rosewood ebonite. And then we have another custom pen maker, which is the Sean Newton pens, and this is the Newton Orville. So you can see that it's a pretty lengthy pen. And in regard to some other models, we have it with the TWSBI Eco, Then here it is with a Lamy Studio. And then here it is with a Faber-Castell loom. And then actually, finally, here it is with a another Edison pens, the Edison pens Menlo pump filler. And like I had mentioned before, I just really love this pen. It just looks amazing, but it gives you a good idea of the varying materials that you can purchase from Edison pens. They just have a wide variety of things. If you can't, it's one of those things. If you can't find something you like, then there's something wrong, because they have such a wide variety that it's pretty amazing. So we're going to start here with a writing sample for the Edison. We'll just call it the limited edition Mina. And this is a medium steel nib. And the ink we're using is something I picked up at the DC show, which is the Robert Oster. And the color is called Bondi Blue. This is what the color looks like. That it has it's kind of a blue that really pops, and it does have a decent amount of sheen to it, and it's kind of a lot of purples and reds around the sides. It really reminds me of something like Konpeki, as well as a Private Reserve Naples Blue, as far as a blue that pops. So so far I'm really enjoying this color. I just think it's a nice one. And then this is the bottle that it comes in. Actually, the bottle's not anything too special, but it at least is nice to fill from, because it's nice and tall and skinny, and so you can get just about any nib in there, or yes, virtually any nib in there. So here we go with the rest of the writing sample. As I mentioned before, this is a steel nib. You're really not going to get a lot of line variation out of here. You know, there's certain nibs that you kind of have to treat with a heavy hand, and other ones that work a little bit better with a lighter touch. And I'll have to say that this particular nib is one that really works well, or at least for me, works better with a lighter touch. In regard to ink flow, that it's a bit on the dry side. That could be part of the ink as well, but that it does run a little bit on the dry side, but there is no problem with the ink flow. And in regard to reverse writing, it's actually very pleasant and lays down a pretty nice extra fine line. And then in regard to some fast writing, the feed doesn't have a problem in keeping up. So we have here is the Edison Pens Limited Edition Mina. If you don't already own an Edison, you know, I would really recommend checking them out. The Grays are really nice people, and they're very easy to do business with. And then on top of that, they make some fantastic pens. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.